sense, but this whole thing is about building relationships. And
Okay.
so sometimes I think you're going to find that there's maybe a kid that is on your club team or something that you don't think is as talented as your child, or as a player, I don't think is as talented as me, but because there's some relationship that's been made at some point, or it clicked the right way with a certain coach, you could end up, you could end up maybe somewhere that you can't.
Right.
Or maybe people don't think you should. The biggest myth is, or the biggest thing, education piece, is like everybody's process is their own.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we do enough of that. I think we get really caught up with like Instagram posts and what is my best friend doing, and what are these three people from my rival team doing. Like, you're the one that the kid is the one that has to go to the school and be happy every day. And I say this all the time, like, there are a lot of days of sunshine and palm trees in the city of Tampa, and there are also hurricanes.
Welcome. I'm your host, Preston Jackson, and championship day today, as we have the 2024 NCAA D2 National Champ. Oh, but hold on. The 2025 NCAA D2 National Lacrosse Champ, and she is also the first and only head coach at the University of Tampa. Everybody, welcome to the show, Coach Kelly Gallagher. Coach, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. How's it? I know the first championship's your baby. You get excited, and they always say the first time around is a little easier than the second time, right? So after you've done it multiple times and that hard second time around, how did you wake up that next morning?
Early, because we had to get on the bus to fly home. No, but excited. I think that when we won in 24, it was like, okay, how do we do it again?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a similar kind of attitude, like, okay, let's do it again.
Okay.
I don't know that I've really like I don't want to say come down, but I don't know that I've really like had time to not have a mindset that we are going to win another one, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
We, this season in 25, we lost one game in overtime at the end of March. And I remember just saying to the team, like, I'd rather lose today than on May 24th.
Facts.
So I think that your first might be your baby. I don't know. We'll have to come back in 5 years and I'll answer that question. It's just like, oh, we did it again. It's back to back. So like, they're like separate, very distinct, very different, but also because they're back to back, I think it's a little maybe more difficult to separate them right now.
It's hard to stay at the mountaintop.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
because once you get there, the climb is tough. You get to the mountaintop, and now you're the target.
Yeah.
Now you're the target. Now everybody's trying to knock you off that top spot. So it's hard to stay there. But we're going to get back to that. Take me to early, Kelly, like your playing days. Take me to your playing days.
It was so different. The game was different. We didn't have boundaries. You could play, when I was in high school, you could play 11 on 11 on the offensive and the defensive side, right? The game has progressed in such a cool way. I am working on a project right now, but it's given me the opportunity to see some of the like timeline of the rule changes we've made in collegiate women's lacrosse, and like how exciting those rule changes have happened from like 2016 to now. With the institution of the possession clock and self starts and the green card changes and all of that. So I played lacrosse because I was like kind of the only kid that played lacrosse.
Okay.
My dad coached. He was a coach. He played on one of the first high school teams. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. And so I was on a lacrosse field for most of my life growing up. And you know, when I was in high school playing, it was like a lot of the girls that played field hockey also played lacrosse. But I was like this weird kid that didn't play field hockey. I'm not running and bending over. I didn't get it. Play volleyball. But
Right.
you know, I think that I was just a kid that like I really loved being on the lacrosse field. I was by no means the best lacrosse player. I may have had at that point, I may have had the best stick skills, but that was just because I'd had a stick in my hand the longest.
Okay.
And then I went, you know, I went to Washington College, a great little Centennial Conference Division III school on the Eastern Shore of Maryland, and that was really just about wanting to have a different experience than everybody else I knew. And
Right.
you know, most kids are going to college like 90 miles from home. That's typically like a rough thing, but I wanted to go see the world. I had really awesome coaches and a great playing career there. I got to play with so many really amazing athletes. And we were fine.
Okay.
We
Okay.
were okay. And you know, I was someone who had to work really hard to get my playing time. I was never like I was never certain that I would be a starter every game. I was never someone who was like the player of the week and like scoring, you know, the multi-point scorer. But I remember my coaches telling me when they were recruiting me, and I remember throughout my time there, I had 2 head coaches when I was in college.
Yeah.
That what I did really well was I was the hardest worker on the field every day.
Okay.
And that I did a lot of things to get other people to score goals. So I was like the second assister. I was the person inside running around setting picks to help those things. I think growing up on the field, you know, I have a little bit of I always had like an innate vision and IQ for what was going on or how to make things work. I used to spend a lot of time like by myself. I say this to our team all the time. They kind of laugh at me, but I'd just take the bucket of balls and I'd go out to the field and I'd just like throw them down. And then I'd just like play pickup with myself and shoot and finish and try different things. And if it worked, it worked. And if it didn't, it didn't.
Yep.
But I loved college lacrosse from the beginning. Like the minute I got on campus, I loved my teammates. I loved my coaches. I loved that there were, I grew up in a very like athletically based town. But I think lacrosse was just still like kind of growing. And so we didn't necessarily always have the best athletes playing lacrosse when I was there. I think that's it's very different now. And, you know, I just love the game. Like more than anything, I love the game. I love to have a stick in my hand. I've been a lax rat for most of my life. So,
yep.
Yeah.
So now you go from playing. So how'd you start coaching?
I had a really great conversation with my college coach, Susie Friedrich. She said to me, you know, what are you going to do next? And I was like, I don't know. And I said, but I don't know what I'm going to do if I don't go to practice every day. Like that's my favorite part of the day is going to practice.
Okay.
I mean, not always, but for the most part.
Yeah.
But I was a lax rat, right? I wanted to be on the field. I wanted to be playing the game. And she was like, well, why don't you try coaching? You know, my dad had coached high school lacrosse for a long time. And at that point he was starting to do some volunteer coaching with a Division III men's program in the area back home in Ohio. And I was like, all right, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? I'm going to like it. So I started applying for coaching jobs, and I had my first coaching job at Muhlenberg College in Allentown, Pennsylvania, Division III, another Centennial Conference school. And it was supposed to be like a 2-year gig. And I remember going to the first recruiting tournament that I went to, and I sat down with my new boss and I was like, what do you want me to, you know, what am I looking for? And she was like, whatever you want, just find good players. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I remember like leaving the first day of the event that I was at and calling my parents and just being like, I got to sit on a lacrosse field all day and write what I liked about a kid and what I didn't like about a kid. And if I, you know, like the thing, like, oh, this kid, like, I can see them do this. Like, what if we could get them to do this or this? I just started to like kind of put the puzzle together a little bit. And I remember getting back from my first event and having a meeting with my boss, and I brought her like a whole like file of notes, and they were like alphabetized, and I had like made up a ranking system, and she was like kind of blown away, I think, that I had like gone and done all this extra work. And I was like, well, if we're gonna be here, let's win, right? Like, I'm coaching in the same conference I just played in. I want to go beat all my friends.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really got the bug there, and Kristen Suckle, who's the coach at Muhlenberg and is still the coach at Muhlenberg, it was an amazing mentor. She still is. But, you know, she was really great about being like, you know, we have to celebrate, like, learning how to win as a coach is really hard because you want to win every game. And she taught me to not worry about the officials because you can't control them.
That's true.
And she taught me how to, you know, put all the pieces of everything together, and, you know, really helped me move from there to my next job. My second job was at the University of Detroit Mercy, which was a startup Division I program at that time. So I was there the first 3 years of the program. And like, it was, you know, full time and a little closer to home.
Right.
But I just like got the bug from going recruiting once, because I was like, oh, well, I like this kid and this kid and this kid. And there were always times where Kristen would be like, Kelly, which ones do you not like? And I would be
Right.
I don't know. I guess I kind of like them all. You know, but it was just like fun. Like, you got to be on a lacrosse field all day. And, and I think that's, you know, we talk a lot about getting to, rather than having to do things, we get to do things.
Okay.
And I think that, you know, I've fallen into coaching because it's something that I get to do, and I love doing it. And I love everything about taking our young female student athletes and helping them learn to advocate and empower themselves in their 4 years in college. I loved college. I think college is like the best 4 years of your life. I would go back and do, I joke with the freshmen that I've been in college for a very long time now, but I really never left. And because it's the best part, it's so much fun. You get to learn about yourself as a person, you get to learn about yourself as an athlete. And I think our athletic experiences give us so much that we can take off the field. So, yeah.
So now you start a program in Detroit. UT comes calling when? How did that opportunity present itself?
Yeah, so I left Detroit after the sorry, I'm really bad at your math.
Okay.
After the 2011 season.
Okay.
Is that right? And then my boss left, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll find a new job. There were some changes happening administratively, and I was like an assistant coach. I was trying to figure out what life was supposed to be like.
Yeah.
So I actually ended up getting another assistant position at Limestone. So I worked at Limestone for a year for the 2011-2012 school year. And I really didn't have any plan. I really wanted to stay there I was hoping to stay there for 2 to 3 years and like build the winning part of my resume as a coach.
Okay.
And the job at Tampa posted in August of 2012, and like everyone I know sent it to me. And so you're going to apply for this, right? And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't think you're ever ready. If there's anybody listening who thinks they want to be a head coach, be ready.
Right. A lot of OJT, a lot of on-the-job training.
Yeah, a lot of it, a lot.
Right.
So
right.
I really hemmed and hawed a little bit, but I looked into it, and the more I looked into it, the more I was like, where did this place come from? It just like, on my radar, not having had lacrosse, I just kind of had popped up, and I sent my stuff in and was fortunate enough to get a phone call. Was fortunate enough that the men's coach who started the program here, Rory Whipple, was pretty good friends with the former Air Force coach Fred Acey, who knows my dad and my family.
Okay.
And so had a really funny phone call with Fred, and then with Coach Acey, and then he called Coach Whipple, and the next thing I knew, I was getting a phone call from Larry Murphy saying, hey, we want to talk to you on the phone. And then it was kind of a whirlwind. I came down and visited, and it didn't really feel real. Like I was walking around, it felt very like home.
Okay.
I think there's a little bit of like Washington College, a little bit of Detroit, a little bit of Muhlenberg, a little bit of Limestone. There's a little bit of all of that here.
Okay.
A little bit of Columbus where I grew up here. And, like came and really didn't think I was going to get the job, if I'm perfectly honest.
Okay.
But that Larry and his staff saw I think they just saw a really excited person who probably wasn't going to say no to anything they asked me to do. And that was fall of 2012. I started in October of 2012, and I've been here ever since. And like what an honor to be the person who has picked every person that's come here to play.
Right.
What an honor to get to take something, a vision, and like see it to completion.
Right.
To some extent. I think that's another thing about being a back-to-back national champion is like I was like, compete for a national championship, win a national championship, and I just got to do it twice.
Yeah.
And before we left for the Final Four last year, Larry gave me really good advice. He said, just remember, not everybody gets this opportunity, and some people and you may only get it once, so go enjoy it. And I gave that same advice to our team this year when we went back. I said, there are not many teams that get to compete for back-to-back titles, let alone one title. So
right.
When we get on the bus to go to the airport, like it's all about having a great time, and it's about being us. And the cherry on top is if we come home, we're coming home with a trophy, but if we come home with the big trophy, that's extra. This is all above the standard at this point. So
and a lot of, let's just say, casual lacrosse fans see the University of Tampa as the big dogs, back-to-back champs, crazy, talented recruits, a talented, hardworking coaching staff. But it didn't start that way, right? It didn't start that way as a startup program in 2014. And just correct me if I'm wrong, the numbers I put together, the first 4 seasons, the program was 23-42. Okay. And that's understandable. From 2014 to 2017, 23 wins, 42 losses. That's how you started. In that time of trial and error, talk to me about putting the right pieces in place, because after that tenure, the Spartans got really good. So take me back to early stages, all the trial and error during that 4-year span.
Yeah, I think a lot of things. I think I was, at the very beginning, getting here in October, I had 6 weeks to signing day, maybe 4.5. But so I was scrambling, and I had just recruited almost an entire class at Limestone for that first recruiting class. So I was recruiting like 3 recruiting classes at the same time during the first couple years. I didn't have a full-time. I was so fortunate to have a full-time assistant, but I didn't hire. That person didn't get hired until the summer prior to our first season. So not until summer of 2013. Okay. But I think it was just like a lot of grind, and like you said, a lot of trial and error. I also think I knew that I wanted to compete. Everybody at the University of Tampa athletic department is an unbelievable place, and the standard is making the NCAA tournament, and the standard is winning a national title. I remember the first time we won the conference, and everyone's like, "Are we getting rings?" And I was like, we only get rings for national championships around here. Like that's what we do. And I love that. I think it's so cool to walk into our building, and there's we have national championship trophies up. Everybody else, all of our conference trophies and stuff are all things we're really proud of, but you walk in and there's 2 rows of national championship trophies right now as soon as you enter the building. So getting there was always the goal, and getting there was always something that we were thinking about. And I knew from coaching at Limestone and some of my, Scott Tucker was and still is a great mentor, and Dennis Short at Rollins has always been a mentor. But I talked to the 2 of them a lot about, like, in building this program, these are the things I want to do, but like, how do I get there? Like, and I think they both were like, you're going to you got to play the best, Kelly. If you want to be the best, you got to play the best. And so, 23 and 42 or whatever it was, because I literally don't know. It's even funny to think about because we just played 22 games this season. Anyway.
That part.
Right. Wow. But like, it was about like instilling from day one that like, just because we were not the team that was supposed to win the game, that we couldn't win the game.
Okay.
And that can be hard when you're playing really tough opponents every week. But I think that the other piece that went along with that was like, as I got to spend more time as my recruiting timeline for the class got shorter and I was able to spend more time with the recruits and getting to know them and their dynamic, at first I was just like, I need people to be on the team.
Yep.
And then it became, I need people that understand how to win on the team.
Right.
And I'll tell you, like, we talk about it a lot here in the building, but learning to win, it's a lot harder to win than it is to lose. It's easy to lose.
Yeah.
When you make a mistake, it's easy to be like, oh, shoot, that didn't work out for me. I guess I don't have to try again. Like, it's a lot harder to get up the next morning and be like, all right, that didn't work. So, like, how are we going to do it now?
Okay.
And I think something that I credit to, like, being willing to have things go maybe wrong a little bit is that I knew it's on the job training. We're going to have to sort through it. And just because something worked for this team in 2014 doesn't mean that it's going to work the same way for the team in 2015. And I really bought into a philosophy of every year is its own year.
Yeah.
Because we only have this particular team for 1 year. We only have this set of circumstances for this 1 year. And I think it really was in probably like 2016, 2017 that I was able to actually start executing the pieces of the trials and errors.
Okay.
I've always been very good at scheduling.
Okay. So hold on, because now you move. I want to ask you the question first because you set yourself up. You gave yourself the own assist. I want to give you the assist. So in 2017, the team was 6-11. Okay. And I'm looking at the records. 2017, the team ended the season at 6-11, a 1-3 conference record, and came in 4th in the conference. Okay. Now go to the very next year. That's where you're alluding to. The switch kind of flipped because now you go from 6 wins to 12 wins. You go to a 12-6 record, a 4-2 conference record, and you finish in 3rd in the conference. So now you're talking about things started not falling in place. You started implementing the things that you wanted in place to build the program. And according to those numbers, it looked like it happened. So talk to them about that process.
Yeah, I think there's 2 big things that happened. We had kids that came here and wanted to win, and they got tired of losing.
Okay.
But I can't win any games on my own. I'm a big believer in that. I'm the head coach. I am the person that will always take the blame.
Yep.
And I give all the credit when we win. But the reality is I can't score a goal. I can't make a save. I can't get a draw control. I called timeout 3 times. Okay. I don't like to use them if I don't have to.
Right.
We don't need to stop the momentum. But I think that I think there was a mindset. I think we had built a mindset shift, and then it was about some of those kids being like, okay, now what do we have to do extra to make sure that we win the game? Mm-hmm. The other thing that happened in 2017, 2018 is that through a lot of work with Larry Murphy, my athletic director, we were able to get a part-time assistant. So now I had a full-time assistant and a part-time assistant, and I just having another set of eyes at practice every day was really great because there was another consistent voice. Mm-hmm. And so that is what happened. That's one of those things that happened that year. But I also think that the voice that we brought in was a young woman who had played for me at Limestone, and she was like, you guys are so good. And sometimes you need that outside voice to come in and tell you the thing that you've been hearing from mom and dad all the time, over and over again. So sometimes it's a little bit of, extra confidence.
Yeah.
But I also think our team started to take on a little bit more of a like personality. Like they started to kind of build their personality a little bit. And
was there a catalyst? Was there a singular catalyst that the team, it could have been you. No, was there somebody that the team kind of took their personality after?
No, I think there's always been a lot of big personalities on our team.
Okay.
I think they just figured out how to I think the big personalities figured out how to complement each other.
Okay.
We just learned how to, I mean, it was really about like learning how to work as a team and understanding that like, if we do this together, the only way to do this is together.
Yeah.
And when we had success doing that, it was really great.
Okay.
But again, I will just say like, we've always had a large roster. It wasn't something that I went into being here with. It just kind of happened.
Okay.
And so like having like, I truly think like the third coach as a part-time person, like having 3 sets of eyes at practice every day made the world's biggest difference, because now there were 3 people giving the same information. There was always someone talking to you as a student athlete. And really like that. And then the other thing is, and this is another like great, I don't know, coach saying that somebody said to me along the way, is that in building a program, you're gonna lose big, you're gonna lose small, you're gonna win small, and then you're gonna win big. Like those are the 4 things. So that also like the record thing, right? You go from 6-11 to 12-6. Yep. And in the 6-11 year, I don't know this, but I would say probably 4 to 5 of those games were maybe like 1 to 4 goal losses. Okay. Versus our 6 games in the next year, it was probably more like 3 of those games were 1 goal losses.
Okay.
Something like that, 1 or 2 goal losses. So, you know, I think that makes a difference too when and I think losing close is worse than losing big. Because if you're losing close, it's like, what else could I have done?
Correct.
What could we have executed differently?
Yep.
And as wild as it is to say that, but like that fuels winning.
Yes. Because you're right there.
Yeah.
You're right there. You're right there. You're 1 possession away. You're 1 draw control away. You're 1 save away. We're 1 possession. We had 1 less turnover. We could have caused this turnover, you know. I'm with you. So you know, I've been a coach for a long time, and I'd rather let me get my butt kicked. I'd rather not lose by 1 or 2. I'd rather just get my butt kicked, because if I lose by 1 or 2, I'm there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially against an opponent who we're supposed to be inferior to.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So now it gets kind of fun. All right, Coach, we get kind of fun.
It does get fun.
Now it starts to get fun, because I'm a Tampanian, so I'm talking as our part of the staff. But 2019 through 2023, and just so the people can understand, the first 4 seasons, 2014 through 2017, the team record was 23-42. And then from 2019 to 2023, the team's record was 56-19. Okay? So you start getting better recruits. You start getting more recruits. The popularity starts to build. We're not even in the championship years, but we're scratching. Like, you're scratching the surface. As you're getting closer and closer to this mountaintop, tell me about the intensities of practice, how those start to pick up. The captains on the team, how those personalities start to shine on those teams, because you're almost there. Talk to me about that process.
Yeah, I think I've always been a big believer that like practice should be harder than the game. Game day should be the fun day. Game day, I literally should clap and cheer and call a timeout. I make some substitutions. Game day is that's your day to shine as student athletes. And I think that has always been my philosophy. We've always practiced hard. The intensity at practice has always been hard. I think that's one of the things like early on that was hard for a lot of our kids, was that transition to college. But I mean, post, 2017, 2018, like I've learned to be a little more upfront about what I expect. Okay. And kind of like not care. Okay. That sounds bad, but
no. You say it.
just think that as a coach, it's really easy to say what we think people want to hear. And there's just things that are different about here. And so I just started to decide that I was going to be really open about things. Like, yes, we're going to have a big roster. We have a big roster because we can play full field at practice, and playing full field at practice directly changes the way that you play in a game, because the game is not 7v7 for 30 minutes. It's transition, and it's being tired while you're doing that. So I believe we've always had intense practices. I think the kids that were on the team in 2016, 2017 would tell you these practices that we're having now are not as hard as the ones the kids on the 23 team would tell you the practices we had this year were not as hard as the ones we had that year. Right. But I think that there are a couple things that changed during that COVID time. I think like the 2020 year, like just 2020 and 2021 hurt my heart. In 2020,
6-1. So for fans, 2020, 6-1 start. Okay. 2021, 7-3 start, 5-1 in the conference. So just give a little context. Now we kind of see how you're feeling, because I got a good team here. You got a good team here. We got a championship caliber team, 20 and 21. All right, go ahead.
2019, we win the first conference tournament. We go to the NCAA tournament for the first time. We host. And we have a lot of those kids back in 2020. And, we were 6-1. Our last game, we're like beating Limestone at home by 10. And I'm like, I don't know. I think they've got something, like, I know Coach Tucker, he's got something in his back pocket, and my staff's like, no, he doesn't. And that ended up being the last game of the season. And we had a really tough, great game with Lindenwood, who was the returning national champion that year, from 2019. So that year is hard because we had so many talented young women on that team who didn't end up coming back in 21. And then 21, the conference was really limited what we could do, but our kids wanted to play 10 games and try to be NCAA eligible. So we did that. But I think that that was like a weird time. I think I'm happy that we were able to play and be together at practice, because I do think that was really important for those kids. But we get out of that and we come to 22, and now, right before, so something else that changed then was right before we closed down for COVID, the University of Tampa announced 3 grad programs that would be 1 calendar year. And so then the NCAA announces that you get the COVID year. So now all of a sudden we have this really attractive 1-year master's program at Tampa. You can come play lacrosse, you can get a master's, and you can do it in 1 year. And you have 1 year of eligibility left. And we had, honestly, I credit our undergrad kids because they came back, and they are the ones. Alexis Skidillo came back. She was a 2020 kid. She came and she tore ACL in 2019, and she worked so hard to get back so she could play. And when they canceled the season and gave everybody that year back, she was the first kid to call me and tell me she was coming back to get her master's. And then she was like, and I got a friend from Jacksonville who wants to come play. So all of a sudden I got I've got Jeannie Santarpio from Jacksonville coming to play, and I've got Lex back. And 22 was a hard year, or it was 21 was a hard year to like get things back going. But then, we start to get interest from these grad students who were like, well, I can go to Tampa for a year. And then in 22, we have Maddie Birch from Louisville, who was all ACC defender and came here and was like our leading scorer on our team. Aaron Sistick, Danny Waters, and Lizzie Pierpont decide that they're gonna do their 5th. They're gonna all take a grad year together in 23, and really, I credit Lex a lot, Alexis Skidillo a lot. I credit, Lizzie, Aaron, and Aaron a lot, because they were kids that came in and their first year was 19. That was the first year that we won. And so for them, they only knew winning, very little losing, only winning. And so then it became a standard. So then, you've got the girls that are coaching for you. You've got Cece coming in. You've got Sarah, you've got those kids coming in and it's like, we win. Like,
Yep.
we're not going to lose. We're going to win.
Okay.
The other thing that happened, you know, is like, again, just consistency. I think consistency is a huge thing, but coaching consistency in the fall of 2018, I was looking for both a full-time and a part-time assistant. Dina Cifelli, who had played at had a great career at Westchester, is doing her master's in exercise science here and came to be our part-time person. And then Kelly Gallagher, who graduated from here in 2016, comes in. So now on staff, you've also got an alum. And, you know, I think that changed things a little bit too, because now there was someone who had been through it, you know, been through the program a year, but had been through the program and was just like passionate about Tampa lacrosse. And it wasn't just me being passionate about Tampa lacrosse anymore.
Yes, ma'am. Yep.
So then we have that consistency. You know, Kaylee's been on staff since the fall of 2018. She's still here. You know, Dina comes. You know, Hillary Ham came and was with us for a little bit too during the COVID time in 22. Dina leaves to go get a full-time job, which you got to do that too. So there's some consistent, you know, the consistency in messaging and in the kids. Again, that's really where we started, you know, 2021, 22 is when we started talking about being a team that hated losing more than we liked winning.
Gotcha.
And, you know, and lacrosse was cool. It was cool to go shoot around, you know, at the beginning, that wasn't cool. And so we had to, it's a long process, right? You have to work towards that. And sometimes your best laid plans don't work out. And, you know, but it really comes down to the young women on the team, like wanting to follow through with what they want to do. And we told them it was going to be hard. And, you know, I can honestly say I don't think we've ever done anything exactly the same way twice, even this year to last year. This year was wild because like we didn't have fall ball because of hurricane land. But you know, there's always going to be a reason for us to not do it. And we've just decided the team and the coaching staff has just decided to take the attitude and the mindset of like, but we're going to do it. Like, it doesn't matter what you put in our way. We're going to figure out how to get the job done. And I think that, you know, I sit at the top, but it's every single kid on our team and it's every assistant coach that has been here, has put us in the, you know, the direction. But really, like, the true thing is like those kids, in that latter part that you're talking about, it became like, we hate losing more than we like winning. And so we worked really hard to like not lose.
Well, I have had the privilege of attending a few UT practices and games, and when we were first introduced, I was so, hey, she's about her business. She's about her business. And when you said, hey, I didn't care. When you were like, yeah, we're starting to get there. I didn't care. I'm setting expectations. I'm going to let my team know expectations. And when I attended practice, you could see it. Like, you were in control. Your assistants knew their roles and their responsibilities. The team knew when it was time to be serious, and the team knew when they can kind of mess around a little bit. Like, I don't like mess around. Yeah. Be a little looser, right? Let's just use that term. Right. It's a balance, right? There's a balance. And as I'm more involved in girls sports now, girls sports have those balances. Guys sports don't necessarily have that balance at all. It's all business all the time. Yeah. But you could tell Coach G runs this ship. Like the captain of the boat, you can tell exactly who she was, when it was her time. And I love that stuff. And it's a testament because now let's roll into this championship years. Okay. I attended practice before the championship season. I attended games during the championship season. The team was successful. As you're starting to get into the tournament, the confidence of the team, I assume, was sky high. Okay. The captains of the teams, I assume their confidence was sky high. When you had those coaching meetings and you guys behind closed doors as staff, what were those conversations like when you knew you had a shot to knock this thing out the park?
Yeah. So I think what's just an interesting piece about the tournament for Division II, on both the men's and the women's side, and just Division II in general, is the Division II model at the NCAA is a regional model. Mm-hmm. So I have always felt great. If we can get to the Final Four, we have really talented kids and we have really great coaches. We'll be, that's the fun part. But getting out of our region is difficult. We are going to have to play a conference opponent at least twice, if not 3 times to get out. And it's incredibly difficult to beat a team twice, let alone beat them 3 times.
Yes.
And so, this is the first time ever that we have swept Florida Southern in the 2025 season. We lost to them in the regular season last year. And again, like, I think we were just like a little bit like, how do we keep ourselves from beating ourselves?
Okay.
Right? It wasn't
fair enough.
It became a lot more about like, what's Tampa doing? And I've always been like that. I've never been like a heavy scouting report. Like, here's everything that they're going to do. Like we have scout teams and we go through that, but it's like, it's like a day or 2 prep. We're not spending weeks like working on something. I'm not sending kids home and being like, you're going to be number 7 tomorrow. Like, come back, ready to go.
Right.
I think we have to, that's something else that kind of started to happen in those 2017, 2018 is we started to like find our identity of what kind of team we were. And we started to really buy into that. So
yeah,
I think that, it's been a lot more for us about being in the driver's seat and doing Tampa things really, really well. Because if we do the Tampa things really, really well, it's really going to be really hard for another team to beat us. So, that was our conversation was more about like, what tweaks can we make to things? How can we help our team continue to grow as individual players and like see these different options that they have? I think that I don't know, it's really like a lot of like just keeping the ship going in the right direction.
Hey, you're the Hey, we use the captain analogy, so go ahead.
It's like just about like keeping things going in the right direction. And there's some really silly things we started doing at the end of last season that really translated into this season.
Yeah.
Our pregame practices, we play a game at the end of it, and it's not a lacrosse game. Like the day before the Regis game or Regis semifinal in 24, we're having the kids, the Winter Park field had football lines on it. So we were like between the 10 and the 20-yard line, and we were having a contest to see who could run backwards the fastest. Right? Like something just to like get your mind off of it and have fun, because at the end of the day, we know our team is best when they're loose and they're having fun. And so the last thing we do at practice is play some silly game.
All right. So hold on.
This is how you win at Tampa.
All right. So now, all right. So I want to talk about a few players, and then I want to get to the educational piece for, because our audience they're going to want to go to Tampa, but we're going to talk a little bit of recruiting. All right. But I want you to take 1 minute. You have 1 minute for each one of these athletes. So I want you to go in hard, and I want you to really talk them up. However, 3 of my favorites, because I have a personal relationship with them. I'm going to start with CC Colombo. All right. CC Colombo, I like to describe her as a legend within our circle. All right. So if somebody did not know CC, they may have seen her play, but they don't know her personality. They don't know her work ethic. They don't know her practice. You have 1 minute. I want you to talk to me about CC Colombo.
CC Colombo is the hardest worker in the room, and she's not the person that nobody knows it. She goes out early. She stays out late. She does multiple workouts outside of practice a day. She is the hardest worker. She is watching film of herself. She is watching every lacrosse game she can to figure out how can I make myself be more like that player. She is incredibly intrinsically motivated and is a standard in terms of what you want from a student athlete outside of practice. In terms of, I think she's probably one of the most underrated lacrosse players. I think I think that there are a lot of individual accolades that if she, I wish she, we could have put her in a position to receive. But I think that Cece is the hardest working kid I know, not just at Lacrosse, but at school, at work, at whatever she does. Cece is always 100%. She is always all in. And my favorite thing about Cece is that I don't think she wants everyone to know how serious she is. I love how serious she is. It's probably one of my favorite things about her. Cece's so much fun. But I think truly on the inside, she's a really serious, focused kid and young woman. She's not a kid anymore. She's an adult. She has a job. And I feel so proud that she played at Tampa and that I got to be her coach. But Cece is like a self-made woman. And I don't think people have any idea how much work she put in on her own to be as talented. She's a gifted athlete anyway, but she put in a lot of extra work to not just be the standard, but raise the standard.
Okay. So now Cece has a sister, Gracie, correct?
Yep.
And my first watching Gracie, and I was like, well, it's kind of hard following up the big sister and Cece. And you look at Gracie, like, oh, she ain't bad. She's not bad at all. And then as the season progresses, she had games where she's scoring 4, 5, 6 goals. And like, her confidence is through the roof. And you can see it through the screen. On person, you're like, yo, she's kind of like a monster right now. So 1 minute and talk me the progression of Gracie Colombo.
There are 3 Colombo sisters. There's an older sister, Gia. And during the recruiting, and they're all year apart.
Yep.
And during the recruiting process, I went and I watched the game, and I'm friends with their club. I was friendly with their club coach, and Gia had decided to go to Lenore Rhine like super early in the process. So I'm watching Cece, right? It's just Gia and Cece on this team. And so I'm like, well, what about Cece? And she's like, Kelly, I think she's going to go to Division I. I think she's like looking at, some like urban, like bigger city schools. I'm like, that's us, but okay. But Nikki goes, but there's a third sister. And I was like, okay. And so, they all like the same email address is listed for all of them. So I just keep emailing. So I say that I brainwashed all of them into coming to Tampa because I was just subliminally messaging them with emails.
Yeah.
But ultimately was trying to get to Gracie because I knew how talented she was.
Right.
Cece, and things change in her recruiting process, and Cece ends up coming to Tampa. And then so now Gia's at Lenore Rhine playing, Cece's at Tampa, and Gracie is looking at like Tampa and Rollins. She would be terribly mad at me for saying that publicly, I think. But Gracie has been a Spartan since I think the minute she found out Cece was coming. Okay. And Gracie is just as talented, but Gracie's a little less patient. So that's the progression of Gracie is like, one, I told Gracie probably every day, like, the Colombos are at Tampa because of Gracie.
Okay.
But Gracie is like just so natural. Like, she shoots the ball and it's effortless. It's effortless. And it was about Gracie grow. She had so much growth during the 23-24 year. And, she'd been in and out of the lineup, and, fitness is something that's really important to us at Tampa. And Gracie spent, like, kudos to her. She spent a lot of time summer 23, like, being fit, working to be fit, right, and to come in because it's a lot easier to get to play lots of minutes when you're not tired.
Right.
And so Gracie is the energy bus. Gracie is the most energetic on the field, on the sideline, on the field. She is like the kid that is jumping up and down. And I credit Gracie a lot with making our sideline a fun place. And even in 24, when it was like, hey, like we're pulling you off, or she was running, she ran as an offensive midi for a little while. It was like, she's like, it's like, Gracie, you got to go back on now, you know? And she's like trying to like do a cheer with the people on the sideline. So I think like a great connector, a great teammate. Sorry, I've definitely gone over a minute about Gracie, but I think
you have, but go ahead.
To know that Gracie is how we got Cece. And I never like pass up the opportunity to remind Gracie of that, and I'm sure she's going to watch this. So, you know, two of my favorite people. It's hysterical that they're sisters. They're so similar, but they're so different.
Yes,
and they're so complementary. They complement each other so well on the field. Like that's what was so much fun about 24 and Cece, you know, using her 5th year, was that they were playing together and they know where each other, like they don't have to talk to each other. And I really did get to just stand and clap a lot and be like, I don't know how we did that. So,
all right. Lastly, we're going to go to Peyton Howell, who this year she was the D2 Player of the Year. Was that her recognition?
Yeah.
All right, so Peyton Howell, D2 Player of the Year. As she's a young woman, but I could challenge her. She looks at you for maybe like the go call, like, all right, can I do this? Yes, you can do it, and then she takes off. Right? I could challenge her as a coach. I can challenge her as a young woman, and she would respond. Okay. So you got it. You got 1:30 on the Player of the Year. Go.
Peyton is a product of Gracie and Cece.
Okay.
Peyton's role on our team grew tremendously throughout the postseason and the 24 season. And it's because when she first got here, she wanted to play. She wanted minutes. And she figured out the way to get minutes was to feed the ball to Cece and Gracie. The other great thing about the 24 team was it was the first time we had like 4 lefties on the field. So at any given time, we had 3 to 4 lefties on the field. And so that creates like all these different opportunities that other teams can't necessarily recreate at practice because maybe you have 1 lefty.
Right.
But Peyton came alive, and I truly think she's just chasing the people that were ahead of her, Cece and Gracie, and those kids are just gracing Lizzie Pierpont and Claire Swanson and Carly Vaccaro and Rachel Crawford and all these other people, Maggie Gladden, right? So there's like the great thing about building a program and the consistency of being the only coach is that like I know who they're all following.
Right.
But Peyton's like saw what Gracie and Cece were doing, and she's like you said, very like she's looking for a go sign. So if you tell Peyton she gets to score a goal, Peyton's scoring 8 goals to be and sometimes you don't know that she scored 8 goals. But you know, I think that's really also what happened against Indy in the semifinal this year is like it was like, guys, if you just move the ball and hold the backside, there's going to be like we're going to get an 8-meter shot, and that is what happened. I think Peyton had like 4 8-meter goals in that game, and it was just because she was patient and figured out, you know, she knew what to do. But more than anything, Peyton wants to win, and that's the same attitude, right? That that both Gracie and Cece had, that Sarah Hinkle had, is like we want to win, and it's fun to win. We talk about that all the time, but Peyton is an incredibly talented athlete. She's someone who, again, works tirelessly on her own, outside by herself. And as much as I think she wants to score a goal, it is about the team winning. And it's about doing something that other people haven't done before. And again, like our team really is like, our motto is like that we would rather like be the worst player on the best team than the best player on the worst team. So
fair.
And I think that really, you know, Peyton was like such a pleasant surprise, and not that I knew how talented she was, right, going through the process, but for her to do what she's done over the last, 26 games or 30 games in the last year's postseason into throughout this year, it's unbelievable.
Right. Fantastic. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to the educational piece before I know you got to get out of here. You got things to do as a head. A few myths. If there are, you've been in this thing for a while and obviously been coaching for a long time. Is there one or two myths that you have heard in the recruiting process that parents are being told that possibly is just not true?
Just one or two.
Coach, I got as much time as you have, so we could go chop up. It don't matter to me.
I have a handful of little like recruiting nuggets that I'm always trying to get out there. So
fair.
I think the most important one is, as a parent, we aren't recruiting you, but we are recruiting you. So
yes.
Pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to what you're saying and where you're saying it. We coaches talk. We talk to everyone we can. Also, you know your child better than anybody else. So at Tampa, our staff is honest. We are coaches that will tell you what you need to hear, not necessarily always what you want to hear. And how you help your child respond to that is really important. And I say that also to say, like, when you take your child to a prospect clinic or a camp, or you sit down and meet with coaching staff, like, you're gonna know if your kid can be successful there or not. And I think that the kids that are most successful when they get to college are the ones who have parents who understand that. We have, it's about you as an individual, as a recruit, but it's also about the team, right? Lacrosse is a team sport. And so I think sometimes, like, it's probably really easy to be like, you're right, the coach is wrong, like, we want to make things better for our kids. But I would just encourage you to, like, your kids. So, like, right now, if your kid is telling you, I want to play at Northwestern, like, not everybody can play at Northwestern. Not everybody can play at Tampa, right? There's a mindset, and there's a personality type that this fits best for. And I think sometimes kids get lost in the recruiting process, not because of necessarily like their club coach not doing something, or their high school coach, or somebody not somebody else doing something. But I think we sometimes as parents don't want to be honest with our kids and be like, okay, well, that's like I think that might be a reach for you. Like, let's watch a game. You can YouTube anything at this point. So
right.
I think, like, being a more active part of the conversation with your child is something that it's not like a recruiting myth, but it's something that I just wish more people would do. And trust yourself. So often parents come in and they're like, well, this is my first time doing this. And it's like, yeah, we know that, right? Like, we do this every day, and this is a business for us as coaches. So we're going to be as honest with you as we can be. And also, like, what's going to make your kid happy or not. And so I think that, like, happy college student athletes are successful college student athletes.
Okay.
And I think sometimes, like, parents get all wrapped up, we get wrapped up into, like, well, everybody wants to go to Tampa and we're going to sit down with the coaches. And it's like, but if your kid isn't, like, can't get coached, then this isn't the right place for you. And that's okay with us. But I think I think as parents, you trust yourselves more. You know more than you think you do. Like, it's not unlike anything else. If something doesn't feel right, it's probably not right.
Right.
I think the other thing is, like, just like it's I don't want to say it's common sense, but this whole thing is about building relationships. And so sometimes I think you're going to find that there's maybe a kid that is on your club team or something that you don't think is as talented as your child, or as a player, I don't think is as talented as me, but because there's some relationship that's been made at some point, or it clicked the right way with a certain coach, you could end up, you could end up maybe somewhere that you can't. Right. Or maybe people don't think you should. The biggest myth is, or the biggest thing, education piece is like everybody's process is their own. And I don't think we do enough of that. I think we get really caught up with like Instagram posts and what is my best friend doing, and what are these three people from my rival team doing. Like, you're the one that the kid is the one that has to go to the school and be happy every day. And I say this all the time, like, there are a lot of days of sunshine and palm trees in the city of Tampa, and there are also hurricanes.
Hey, right.
And we have to enjoy the hurricane days as much as we enjoy the sunshine palm tree days. So those aren't really like myths, but they're the educational pieces that, like, you're in charge of your recruiting process. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong way to do it. I think that, being open and communicative is really good. And, being honest. Like, I just think the more honest you can be, the better. Getting good grades is always going to open doors for you. Do your homework.
Where do I need to be as a prospect? So I'm trying to build my roadmap. I'm trying to build a roadmap to get college coaches' eyes on me, or around people who have influence with college coaches. What events? How important is my club? Where should I perform? Right? And then we'll talk about your prospect camp coming up later on. But where do I need to be, and how important is my club and high school? Because those are two different arguments. High school ball, club ball, prospect camps, evaluation camps. It's for parents, and I'm just speaking as one, but I get these questions a lot. It just seems like there's so much that people make me think I have to do in order for my daughter or my son to get recruited. Well, what are the things, Coach, that at the very least you should make sure you're doing 1 and 2 and 3? What are those things?
Yeah, I think that if you have the opportunity to play both high school ball and club ball, you should do that. Okay. I grew up in the Midwest. I am a big high school person, a big high school ball proponent. Playing for your school, playing for your town, the pride of being able to say that you did that is so important. That said, I hear a lot of kids that are like, well, my high school team's bad. It's like, everyone's high school team's bad. It's even the good ones are bad on certain days, right? Like, there's a group of schools that are really good, but like, we know that, right? I think sometimes we overstate the things that we're insecure about as recruits. And it's like, guys, it's my job to know what high schools are good, but it's also my job to like do my homework. So I think, like, I'm a big proponent of playing high school sports. I think there's like there's a commitment and a pride of where you're from to like be a part of something like that. Right. Club, there is a club out there for everyone. I think that if you want to be seen by college coaches, you need to be where the college coaches are. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean that every college coach that you want is going to be at every single game that you've ever played. So I think going to tournaments where you can see the list and which coaches have been there or what coaches have been there in the past is important. I don't think you need to play in a club tournament every single weekend of the summer. I just don't. We don't recruit every single weekend of the summer. And this is something that, I started doing probably coming out of COVID because it was just too much. Like, I don't need to spend 8 weeks on the road. Right. Where's my quality of life? So right. I think, like, look at the list from the year before of the college coaches that attended and, talk to your club directors about that. I think it's helpful to be able to see you play, but at the same time, like there's so much film now that like I love a kid that can send me a high school game and a club game and then comes to a prospect clinic, right? I think the other thing about it is like working with the coach at the school that you think you want to go to.
Okay.
And there's, you know, lots of different ways to do that. There are like you said, we have prospect clinics in July coming up, but then there's tons of camps and clinics now that have coaches from, you know, 10, 11, 12 schools at them. And while I don't think you necessarily need to be at every single one of them, I think the more that you can get an idea of like what it's like to play for someone, you know, the better it can be, especially when you're younger. Those camps that have lots of different schools represented, I think is like good. It gives you like that variety of like who you're getting coached by. But it's also unlikely that you get to like totally choose who you're getting coached by. So for thought there. I do think institutional camps is still like really the best way to go. We don't have a kid that's not come to one of our camps that really gets recruited here at some point during the process. And I think going to an institutional camp or clinic is really important because it's also about making the effort to get to the school.
Yeah.
You know, I think something that's interesting here sometimes is that, you know, I just, to be as blunt as I can, like finances always matter, right? There's always a piece, like there's always a financial piece. And I'm a big believer that your college search is like a puzzle. It's everybody's puzzle is the same shape, but everybody's pieces in the puzzle are different.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes be hard when a kid's like, well, we can't afford to come to campus. And for me, it's like, well, if you and your family can't afford to come to campus, that's going to be hard for me because I don't want the financial strain of you coming to Tampa to be such a big piece of the puzzle that you don't get to enjoy the other parts of the puzzle.
Okay.
So I don't think you need to go to every recruiting event all summer. I think you should set boundaries. You should go on vacation. I have never like told a kid that we're not recruiting them because their family vacation is the week that we're having camp. You know, that's silly to me. We want well-rounded people. So I would say this is my order. I think institutional prospect clinic is one.
Okay.
I would say when you're younger, I would say being at like a big camp or clinic where there's lots of different coaches that you can get lots of different experiences with, that can be helpful. I think playing on a club team can be good. Getting out of where you live to go play, especially like our kids here in Tampa, like it's great to go to what was last weekend, Sunshine State Play Day or whatever it is.
Yep.
But like I wasn't there, you know, and as easy as it is sometimes for it to be right down the street, sometimes you're not playing the best, you know, we want to see you play against the best opponents we can.
Right.
So I do think it's worth making 1 to 2 trips up to the Mid-Atlantic to play in a tournament. Cause I also think you never know who's going to see you.
Right.
And I think that's the other piece is like, be open-minded about it because there's so many colleges.
Only for Tampa. Okay. Don't make a generalized statement, just only for Tampa and your staff. Is club hopping a red flag? A player who is consistently moving from club to club to club.
I'm going to ask questions about it.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm going to ask questions about it. Our landscape here, and I think in most maybe like still non-traditional areas, can be hard because I think sometimes there's a lot of like there can be movement when like clubs merge or things like that happen. And I think that tends to happen in areas like this a little bit more. So I'm going to at least do my research about like what's going on. Okay.
And then stay strictly to Tampa. The traits, and they don't have to necessarily be position based, but the traits that you look for in a prospect. What does Tampa look for? What kind of traits do the University of Tampa Spartans look for in potential prospects?
Fitness. Fitness is number one. We can teach you to catch and throw.
Okay.
Fitness, and not just that you're the fastest kid on the field, but are you quick?
Okay.
Do you have good footwork? Like fitness. Can you play the whole game and actually go as hard as you can? And I would say like a competitive mentality. Are you the kid when there's a ball on the ground? Are you the kid running through the scrum to pick it up and get it going whichever way it needs to go? Or are you like backing out of the scrum? We want competitors at Tampa. You know, I those are the first two things that we're always looking at. I think there's a I think I heard it on Hard Knocks, but somebody talked about like the give a crap factor. Like it's the give a crap factor. Like, do you want the ball? Do you want your team to get the ball? How hard are you going when you're on the field? So your fitness, your like competitiveness. And then I would say the next thing is like IQ. What are you doing? What are you doing when you don't have the ball? There's a 90-second possession clock, and offensively or defensively, what are you doing when you're not the person defending the ball carrier? And what are you doing when you're the person that doesn't have the ball? Because the reality is you're having let's say we have a 70-second offensive possession and you're an offensive player. If you break that down, that's like you're having the ball for maybe 3 to 5 seconds. So what you're doing without the ball is just as important as what you're doing with the ball offensively, and what you're doing off ball as a defender is just as important as what you do on ball as a defender. Because those things are not the same. You know, they don't work out to be the same.
I'm going to take this to your prospect camp that you're involved with. And before you highlight the dates and details, and obviously we're here to help promote that event, I am a big promoter, and this is just me. This is my rant now. This is my rant. As I've been involved with sports forever. I played at a high level. But I can't stand when kids go to camps, no matter what the sport is, and they're just waiting around for the whistle to blow for coach to start the camp. And I tell my kids all the time, coaches and parents, coaches are watching everything from how you walk in the gate to how you shake hands, to how you look them in the eye when you register, to once you put your bag down, do you find a wall? Are you working your dodges on your own? Like, what are you doing before this event starts? Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong, or add on to what I said, and then lead into your prospect camp. You're watching everything from when they get to camp, when they set foot on that field, when they come through those gates. Coaches are watching everything, and then talk about the prospect camp you have coming on.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that, because like you enter our stadium and we like register at the front, and then you have to walk through the tunnel, and it's so funny to see people like hang out on the backside until it's like, okay, let's go. I pay so much attention to that. The other thing that I really pay attention to is who talks. Like camp is, 50 kids, 75 kids, like who's willing to talk, who's willing to be themselves. At Tampa, we're very open about, we all have there's a lot of big personalities. So you got to be able to hold your own. And I know people get nervous, but I think that go be yourself. That's what we want. We want honesty. We want openness. But we are hosting 3 prospect clinics. They are July 28th, 29th, and 30th. They start at 8. We'll play lacrosse until 11, and then we do a quick tour of the athletic facilities, and then we do about an hour of Q&A with our student athletes that are working the clinic. So we are not scripted. They answer questions on their own. Sometimes I have to supplement some things they say. But I think it's most important to hear about the experience from the people that are living it every day. Those are the people that are going to be your potential teammates. I'm going to be your coach. I am friendly, but I am not your friend. And then there's an opportunity. There's a campus tour opportunity as well. You have to sign up for that separately. But that, and then we also do a showcase in New Jersey this June 29th and 30th. It is we've got some really great Division I coaches that are coming this year. And now I'm not thinking of any of them. Hopkins, Rutgers, USC, Delaware, Tampa, Seton Hill. There's like a good mix of schools that'll be there. And then after the President's Cup, we'll do a Division II showcase here. But that's November, so we've got time. kglaxllc.com, that's where everything is. But thank you, Preston, for giving me a little advertising time.
Absolutely. I'm gonna blow this all up. This is what I want to do. I want to expose the sport of lacrosse. I want to expose the sport of lacrosse. I wanted to grow here in Tampa. I want people to know about your program, and just everything Tampa has to offer. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Yes, ma'am.